Welcome to the Franchise Masters podcast, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn what it takes to find, buy, and build successful franchise businesses. My name is Drew Carpenito, and I'm your host as we dive into these fascinating behind-the-scenes stories of people who have used surprising franchises to create massive success. I'm glad you're here. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Franchise Masters podcast. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Turp Ricketts, who is the VP of Franchise Development for Horsepower Brands, and this is one of the companies that has a ton of stuff going on. It's hard to keep up with. So we're gonna get an update from Turp. But Turp, welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Absolute pleasure to be here with one of my favorite people in the world. I appreciate you laugh at my bad jokes, and you're a good dude too. So it's I'm astounded to be here and very excited to talk to you today, man.
Yeah, well, for anybody who can't see Turp, he's on my screen, and he made a special trip to TJ Maxx and bought a new striped polo shirt just for this podcast.
It's Kids Are Us, Drew. Kids Are Us. They had a flash sale, and I get the alerts on my phone. So I was pretty pumped. I got about 3 shirts, really well. They fit me well. It's exciting.
Yeah. So when Turp's not busy running franchise development for one of the fastest growing franchise companies in the country, he's also a part-time comedian and entertainer. So there, we may have to edit some stuff out of this podcast, which is fine. We're just gonna go with this. But
there could be.
No, in all seriousness, man, I'm glad that you're here. So would love to just kick it off by learning a little bit more and sharing your story about how you kind of came up in this wonderful world of franchising and how you got hooked up with the guys over at Horsepower.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, no, I'm really excited too. I think we'll dig into some really cool topics here today. So my story really, I'm a mama's boy, and I was interning and working with the PGA Tour throughout college. And I got offered a job, and they said, well, in ops, like you have to go, I don't know if it's still like this, but you had to go work for like a 10-year contract with PGA Europe, and it was in Dubai. And I was like, I would die, first of all, if I was living in Dubai in my early 20s. And second of all, I have to see my mom more than like once a week every year. So that just didn't happen. And I stumbled into the world of franchising. One of the things that I love about franchising and that always touched me about it that I didn't know was a truth until really maybe a few years ago is seeing my dad build a small business himself and go through the ups, the downs. We're your country club to where are we living now, Dad, and why? And seeing that man struggle, who's like my hero, go through it. And then I started getting introduced to franchising, and I'm like, this is the beautiful thing about franchising. It fills in the gaps of someone that can execute at the end of the day. And that's what I'm passionate about. And I kind of fell into it, was in a couple different consulting and operations sales director roles. And then I was 25, 26, met the CEO of a national lender. And he said, hey, I want to launch a franchise vertical. I'd done some franchise consulting with him. I was like 25, 26, never managed anybody. And he wants to build up this $1 billion vertical. And I'm like, yeah, of course. This will be easy. So about 4 years later, we got to about 650 million as far as a portfolio. And the portfolio, they weren't planning on it to build that large, that fast. And they wanted to hold off on that. And I was like, well, that's just not going to work for me. I have a background in finance, and then was really familiar with a lot of different brands too. Like we do QSR, fitness, and also service-based. I met Josh and Zach through that. I think I called the CFO of Redbox Plus and Monster like 250 times or something. It was like every day. And finally, they picked up, and Josh was in the room. He's like, come out. And so I met them, started working with them, building out these customized finance programs. A lot of like Monster, Redbox would be very familiar with like an iPhone. We need to understand how you're going to scale and how you're going to do it. Are we going to look at equipment finance agreements, et cetera? So I really respected Josh and Zach, and I knew that they were good people, treated their franchisees well, and they were running really successful franchises. And so when I wanted to leave, this might be a part you have to bleep out.
Just go with it.
I told my dad I was quitting Unify, and I wanted to give Unify a long time. Like I respected the heck out of RJ Grimshaw, who's a super great dude and well respected in the industry. And like I wanted to give them that time to run off that portfolio. So I go, all right, I'll give you 2 months. But then I'm quitting. And I didn't look. And then my dad's like, you're you are just you left this job. And first call I made was Josh Skolnick. And Josh goes, give me 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, that was a little weird, but okay. And then he calls me back in 5 minutes. He goes, perfect. So we're doing this. We didn't know it was going to be horsepower brands, but we knew that we had Mighty Dog Roofing on the come up, and like what we wanted to do from being able to provide the shared services at a better margin cost, with really in unison within these different service-based brands. And he said, fly out to Omaha. I flew out, met Josh and Zach, and they were like, were you doing it? And I was like, I guess I'm moving to Omaha. And then just from there, man, worked with Mighty Dog and built that out. And now I'm overseeing all the brands here under the horsepower umbrella. So it's been a fun ride and journey, and I've loved every second of it, man.
Yeah, and it's been kind of nonstop, right? From the day that you joined.
Yes, we have unlimited vacation besides Turp. That's the rule. It's in the contract. So
that's funny. What type of business did your dad have?
He had a custom clothing business. So he would come in, and it was like really when it was like hot in like the 90s, early 2000s, he'd come get you fitted up in some pinstripe or, some shark skin type suit. And it was so powerful going through that as a little kid, where I think a lot of the parents that are buying into franchises, they're doing their children a huge favor by seeing what it's like to own a business, what it's like to go through struggle and have to overcome and see you on your bad day, and then appreciate mom and dad more on their best day too, and the type of dedication that it takes to be a successful business owner. And to see my dad go through those things, it wasn't that he wasn't working hard. He just didn't know what he didn't know in certain places. And when I see something like a franchise, and we're not the only franchisor, I'm very biased. I think we're the best out there, but I'm biased. There are other great ones out there. If you find a great one that has that support, it doesn't make it easy or anything, but you have that support, and you know that you have those holes that we can plug so that you can focus on execution and revenue generating activity at the end of the day. And I feel if my dad was able to have something like that, or at least a version of that, things may have turned out differently for him, because the dude certainly grinded. That's for sure.
Yeah. Was it like kind of just him in the business, or did he have a team of folks?
So it's interesting. So he did start to expand out to a team where he was almost like licensing. I'm sure we could get into the difference between licensing and franchising as a licensee or
your dad's business is more interesting.
Yes. So he did that, started to build that up. And it was really cooking to the point where he had about like 12 guys that were all around the country that are selling under Thomas Turp and Clothiers. He was going to open a retail shop and then leverage out with some different kind of like deals and some stuff like that. And 9/11 happened the day he was supposed to close. I've never gotten this in depth with the story, but the deal the day it was supposed to close, the bank goes no. And then his business kind of started just going like this. I would say like maybe mid to later of the 2007 to 10, people just started dressing down too. So the margins on those $5,000 suits are pretty sweet. The margins on any clothing is pretty sweet, but he just didn't have the capital or I think just wherewithal to be able to pivot, and losing that store. Then some of his guys started dropping off, and things went downhill fairly quickly, just to be very real and blunt. But outside of his control. I mean, the market shifted a little bit, and a lot of, I would imagine, like the online retailers and stuff started popping up and like crazy. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, what I always say when we're thinking about, like when I was in finance, I would read like IBIS World Reports, and I still do this for all the brands that we're going to launch. So industry data reports, people that are professionals, much smarter than I am, and most typically creditors. And I want to know that there is not a Procter and Gamble or like a huge behemoth company that's going to sit at the table with us. And what I mean by that is, as you build a franchise, all franchisors like to talk about their brand, and how magnificent it is. Like, you don't have Jack, brother. Like, you don't have a brand. You have branding, but you don't have a brand, because a brand that's well recognized, where you have some of that market capital, you're going to sit at the table with like a Procter and Gamble or somebody like that. And guess what? In that industry, if they're hungry and you're having lunch and you're all eating lunch together and Procter and Gamble is hungry, they're going to eat it. They're going to eat it up and they're going to look at you while they do it. So you're going to lose. So what do those industries look like? And being able to do that back end and understand that for all of our new brands with Horsepower is really cool to make sure that we can have that brand and do it really, really quickly. I went off on a little tangent, but
yeah, no, it's good because I was going to ask you because, just talking through your dad's business and kind of his journey a little bit and, being an independent entrepreneur out there, having to, figure out every day, battle every day and kind of figure it out. And, things change. And again, it's kind of just him, and his team, but doesn't have the, other franchise owners to call to kind of compare notes and, see what they're doing to adapt to any kind of changes that might be happening in the business or obviously call the franchisor and stuff like that. Like it's definitely a different journey. And you had mentioned that, there's some holes that you guys at Horsepower have, taken under your wing in a way to help franchise owners with a lot of the blocking and tackling nuts and bolts back end stuff that goes into really running a successful business, number one, and then number two, scaling it if franchise owners want to scale. Yeah. What are some of those holes that or services that you guys provide that, might not be the sexiest or the most fun thing to talk about, but fundamentally, it provides a big lift to the franchise owners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest one is Recruit Z, where it's a flat fee. It's like $1,900, and then we go out, recruit, look at interviewing, do that first round interview, set up the interviews, do that vetting, background check, etc. for a GM, a salesperson, an ops manager, production, a technician, etc. And no franchisor does that. So we created it's a different entity so that we're not any HR anything, but we can provide it at such a low cost. Like if you talk to a good recruiter, they don't want to chat with you unless they get 10% of whatever the salary is that you're going to pay that person. And they don't care if it doesn't work out, et cetera, where we're able to, one, understand what we're looking for better because they're right there. We can talk to them and understand that. And we can do it at a much better cost. So if we can be razor thin margin in the black here, but over here, all of our franchisees, and I'm holding up my tiny dainty hands right now for, again, those of us not watching, this is actually a full-sized Fiji, normal-sized Fiji bottle. And also there's some nail polish. I actually was with Chris Balin's 9-year-old daughter. She was playing salon this weekend, so I got bedazzled. There's still a few chips. So we can go in and make it to where, okay, it's like flat fee. Same thing with Franchise Rocket, for example, which is marketing, and everybody knows everything about marketing. And every single digital marketing agency knows that we're not doing as good of a job as they can, and this, that, the other. But what they don't have is they're not able to have that transparency and that data and the measuring and understanding. Here are the keywords that we need to be dialed in on for Gatsby and iPhone, et cetera. And they're also, same thing, like commissions with Recruit Z. I'm going to give you $10,000. I'm going to pretend Drew is a marketing company. And Drew's going to tell me, that is great. What is this $10,000 really for? What do you want to do? Here's some options. I'll do AdWords and then some Facebook advertising. Okay, great. Well, I'm Drew and I'm so tight and awesome that you're going to pay me $2,000 or $3,000 out of that 10 as a commission for me to even do this and execute it to you, for you. So it's not like we're giving the owner that 10 grand or anything. They're still spending it, but all 10 grand is going into what they're paying for, making them more efficient, cost per leads better. And it's a flat fee. It's $500 to $1,500 a month flat, and you have your own success manager. For business coaches on the franchisor side, we're every 20 franchisees, and for Franchise Rocket, we're every 12 to 15 franchisees. So there's even more type of infrastructure there. And again, it's flat fees. So then their bottom line gets better, their top line gets better, and our royalty revenue and income stream, that's our lifeblood, that gets better too. And when all three of those things are working, it's a nice circle, and we just run around and we eat everybody's lunch that we come across. So it's pretty cool. And those are just two of them. We have quite a few, call center, things like that. And making it more efficient, effective for franchisees is big. And that's not to say it's perfect either, Drew, because we're not. We make mistakes. So
yeah, but I mean it's I think just, the HR piece, the advertising and the marketing piece, especially on the digital side, which is the wild, wild west. And that's where a lot of new franchise owners and even new business owners can get taken advantage of. Cause it's, the allure and the promises, but how do you really measure and, account for it? And then the call center, which is a massive element of any single home service related business, because at the end of the day, right, like you kind of have the elements. I think that the recipe that goes into winning in the home service space is if you can answer the phone when the customer calls, book an appointment, show up on time, be friendly, be professional, give them a fair price, do good work. Doesn't even have to be, amazing, out of this world, some special patented way. Do good work, provide good customer service, make sure they're happy. You are an exceptional company automatically by just doing those simple things very consistently, because so many companies in this space, it's so massive, there's so much money being spent, but the running it like a business in a professional sense, it's kind of the exception. It's not the norm. It's wild.
Oh, really? Yeah, it really is. And it's like I was saying, like in roofing, it's if you're average, you show up and you're decent, like you're the A player. You're on the Victoria's Secret runway show, like being just average. And I think that's huge. And that's why we love to play in the service space, because none of the owners that we have know anything about roofing or foam or lighting, whatever it is. But what they do have is they have that high level skill set. If they haven't been business owners prior, they've been at a high level and somehow professionally, they understand how to manage people, how to execute, how to maybe scale a business. And then we plug those other holes. And I think something that's huge too, that's really struck everybody since COVID, is supply chain. And these are some more things that then Josh and Zach have been making massive investments on. Is we have HPB fleet. So we're going and doing all of the upfitting of the different vehicles, making sure that we're working with those manufacturers to make sure that if a franchise owner does want to scale, that we have that vehicle ready to go. When the franchise owner wants to launch, we have those in production, and we also, the upfitting of that vehicle, everything that's needed is taken care of there. Like with Blingle, it's lights for Christmas. We're shipping in. We just got like another $1 million worth of lights. The warehouse is ridiculous. It looks kind of funny. I've just never seen that many Christmas lights. But it's awesome, the investments that these guys are making in this, and it all is going to, it's for not just one cause, not for us to benefit or not for just a franchisee to benefit, but it's everybody that's going to go win together. And I always tell people, I'm like, you find the right culture fit, the right support system where they're going to continue to innovate and continue to get better, and then look at yourself in the mirror and say, can I execute this model, what they're saying right here? And if that's all three, and it's hard to find all three, that you've gotten there. And I can tell people with a straight face, it might not be a fit. A horsepower brand might not be, but it won't be because we're not providing the best support, and that we're going to continue to improve and be the best out there, because I don't know anybody else that is doing it like we are.
So you guys provide, a lot of amazing support services that a lot of franchise companies typically don't, even though if they say they do. Like, you obviously, when, I'm coaching folks from doing the research and, and doing an analysis on a business, like, anything that you're told, like there's a way to validate all this, and that's what we're going to do and all that kind of stuff. But so we talked through what you guys do to help the franchise owners. So can you talk to us a little about what the franchise owners actually do to run, to start, to build, and to scale if they want to scale?
Yeah. So I think it all comes down to, we're building basically a beautiful sales and marketing engine, regardless of which widget is it. So the brand itself this is just the widget. And some of those executable skill sets are going to be a little bit different. And it's, what do you want? Do you want a high ticket, high margin, where you're going to have that EBITDA that's going to be a crazy number with like an iPhone or a Mighty Dog Roofing? Do you want the recurring revenue as well as commercial, like with a Blingle? Do you want that recurring revenue model that's semi-absentee only? And we can get into that with like a Heroes Lawn Care. So it's, what does that look like from an execution standpoint? But truly, I think anyone coming out of a leadership position in corporate America, even if they've been in ops or they're an engineer, they can execute on those those specific things to make sure that their KPIs are dialed in, et cetera. They won't be the salesperson, but we don't really necessarily even want somebody that's an owner operator going out there and being the salesperson, especially after the first 3 months or so, because then what happens is you get stuck in the weeds and you never scale your business. And scalability is like huge too. It's everyone says it so flippantly in franchising. Oh, we have such a scalable business model. I'm like, dog, any business model is scalable. Like it is. Like I could be building whatever and yeah, I could scale this, but what is it going to take me? And then if I need to get a little leverage with equipment, well, what does that do from a tax perspective from Section 179? Okay, well, I like that. Or am I just hiring salespeople and adding trucks and maybe production manager here and there for every 3 or 4 salespeople with like a Mighty Dog? So that's less capital intensive, but then you don't have the tax advantages like you would with a Gatsby or Blangle or iPhone with the Heroes, even with the equipment and vehicles. So I think that coaching, the holes are different for everybody. And then we focus on where those gaps are. If it's on the accounting side, a lot of it in the first part is product knowledge side too, because we don't want somebody that's like, my name is, what you think about a roofer or something, Billy Bob, and I've been roofing and my grandfather was roofing and, this is what we do. It's a much different type of feel. So a lot of that product knowledge, I think, is big in the beginning for sure.
Yeah. So you're looking for franchise owners, both men and women, who can, obviously get scrappy, learn the business, but it sounds like, they've built and led teams of people before, and they're good at that. They enjoy that. That's what fires them up every day is, the ability to, do the people piece really, really well and be comfortable delegating and be comfortable firing if they need to make a change, which happens when you're, building a small business is that, you gotta, what do they say? Hire slow, fire fast, right? And, and that's just a part of it, right? But the franchise owners do the people piece day in, day out. They're managing their people. And as they're growing their businesses, obviously, how you scale a business, each business scales differently, like you said, but the people piece is the thing that sounds like day in, day out. That's where the franchise owner's focus is.
Yeah. I think that's huge too, from a firing perspective. Some franchises, let me give them another chance. Let me do this. And I was talking to somebody, I'm like, they've been on for 2 months and they haven't made a sale. Well, they said the leads are bad. I'm like, oh, that's of course they did. What do they do? Any business development? Go to any B&I groups for you? No. What do? They just hang out in the office if they don't have a call. I'm like, that's sick. I'm sure this person loves just hanging out in the office and having you pay them, even though that person should want to be, if a salesperson isn't motivated by making commission, that's not good. But you have to be comfortable with that. And I think being able to just pivot, understand when you've made a mistake as a business owner, and then when we've made a mistake as a franchisor, I don't think it's like this. It's us pointing at each other. We're both, if something bad's happening, it's not just my fault and it's not just your fault. And that's beautiful about franchising. Instead of pointing a finger and whining and crying, well, what do we need to do to fix it? And then let's look at these different KPIs and these leading indicators that we have, as opposed to just every month you meet with your business coach and say, here's my P&L. Okay, cool. I don't need any help reading a P&L, and I'm dumb. I'm not a smart person. It's like, how does that provide value here? And how am I able to make a change in my business as a business owner today that will impact tomorrow, as opposed to being 30 or 45 days late to the barbecue if we're just looking at things like a P&L and balance sheet, which are important tools, obviously, but there's not an added value there to be better than your competition.
Yeah, because they're the lagging indicators of something that has happened or not happening in the business. That there's a lot of other stuff to look at before you look at the P&L and go, oh, lost 10 grand last month. Why is that? Well, because your lead gen and your conversions are way off because your salesperson is not converting at the rate that we know every other salesperson in Mighty Dog Roofing is converting at around the country. And your market's not different than, Boise, than Charlotte, whatever. So yeah. But it does take it takes a mindset, I think, of a franchise owner. A lot of times, like there's a transition of a mindset that has to happen. And it's a big emotional journey for people as well. But the people piece is the big thing. And is that where you see the franchise owners, like like your top performer? Well, let me ask you this. Where do you see your top performing franchise owners across all your brands separate themselves from, the average or the
I think
bottom?
I think it's in that people piece, and then accountability. holding not just us accountable as a franchisor, but holding themselves accountable, that'll spill down. If you as the owner don't hold yourself accountable and don't want to make a change or can't pivot in a cool, calm, collected manner and utilize the resources you have, and you freak out and it's this, that, well, that's just going to go down throughout the entire team. And then it's going to create some toxicity and just not good. So it's accountability is huge. I think having that half glass full mentality, where I always tell the ops team and people like, I'm like, this is the scariest moment likely of this new franchise owner's life. Like, they just shelled out some cash. There's a lot going on in their life right now, and you have to be empathetic towards that and understand if they call you up 5 times a day, which, like Tanner, when we were launching Mighty Dog, he'd be like, man, is this usual? I'm like, yeah, especially for people that are just going, you got to be empathetic towards that. And if you have that glass half full, I think the franchise owner knows, hey, I'm there to support. And also this is rocking, this is rolling. And then just being that people person and somebody that has that empire builder, I'm going to go eat their effing lunch mindset every single day. Because if I don't, and this, especially as a business owner, that you are not going to succeed. So if you don't have some of that kind of killer, some of that dog in you, you're going to get eaten up.
Yeah. Yeah. The execution, right? Like just the ability to make it happen, even though you guys provide all these amazing elements behind the scenes, it still takes the franchise owner to take it all off the shelf and then implement it, execute it, and then put it all into this working machine, and then put the people in to then make it go. Because that's like, when a franchise company decides to franchise, I always tell people, they're not going to do the people piece for you. That's what they want you to do. They're giving up the bottom line profits to you, but you have to do the people piece. They can't do it for you. They can't even do it legally, but they don't want to do it. That's why they chose to expand via franchising, because that's what franchising, that's what that strategy is all about. So,
yeah.
So execution, the people piece, you mentioned something interesting that I'd love to just pick your brain on a little bit more and do a deep dive on. You mentioned that you have a semi-absentee only business. Now, I'm going to preface this because this word semi-absentee, it sure is fun to say because it sounds really good and amazing.
Perfect. Yeah.
But, I'm finding, today I was hanging out with somebody who was on a call with a key leader of an emerging franchise, and they have a candidate. And the story was that the candidate wants to keep his job because he's got a bunch of flexibility in it. He wants to keep the income coming in until the business is growing. And he's going to hire a GM and stuff like that. And the sales rep's like, oh, that's semi-absentee to me. And then the key executive who makes the decision at this company, which is not a horsepower company, said, no, that is not semi-absentee to me. I'm like, how do you guys not know what semi-absentee means?
Yeah.
And you're 6 months into development and growing. So semi-absentee means a lot to a lot of different people and a lot of different franchise companies and whatever. What does semi-absentee mean to horsepower brands?
Yeah. So I like that, and would love to expand on it, because it is a word that's thrown around a lot, and I think does mean a lot of different things. And I always tell people, if they're, well, what questions am I asking that am I not asking? And I'm like, I don't know, because I can't get in your head, but I'm like, I just need you to know that it's not rainbows, butterflies, kittens, sunshine. And the semi-absentee model is really, really sexy. And I think sometimes that people and directors can just make it sound like it's too easy. It's so this, it's so that. To us, it's 10 to 15 hours a week that you have to commit. And I'll talk to some candidates sometimes too, and they'll have it in their head, well, I have a really flexible schedule. I don't need to hire a GM and take on that extra payroll right away, or at least through the onboarding process, right? Well, I bet your really flexible schedule isn't as flexible as you think. People don't realize 10 to 15 hours a week is a lot of time. So it is being very, and I beat up my development directors too, because they should continuously try to do a better job with this, of making sure that, hey, if you're semi-absentee, your GM needs to go through at least 4 weeks. We have a cohort of onboarding, so you're going to have to pay them. Now, it won't be a 40-hour week, but you're going to have to pay them. You got to work that out. We help you work that out. We don't just say figure it out. Like, we're working with you on that. And then they have to come to training for the week too. And it's like, well, why is it taking me so long to go through training? Have you hired your GM? No. Well, that's being decisive, making a decision at the end of the day. Like hiring someone, you have to be decisive. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. If you're afraid to make a mistake, you're going to sit on your hands your entire life, be old and die and never do anything. So make a mistake, go out there and try it and hire that person, and you would have gotten to training earlier. Now, it's also, I always say, during the onboarding process in that first month or two, it's going to take maybe a little more time. You're going to be on the higher end of that 15. There might be something that happens. The salesperson wasn't the right fit or whatever. I'm like, that's on you as a business owner. And let's be real about that. Now, as a semi-absentee owner, your payroll is going to be heavier. So it's going to take you longer to get to, I think, a point of scale from like, that's a certain scale, whatever the business model is, it'll be different. But then once you look at this pop off, which is something that I would look at as scalability. So am I at a 90% capacity with my truck? I need another one. But when you're at that point, an owner operator where they got to that point faster, now they can't let other people swim in the lanes. They need a GM, and they should be focusing even more on and not in, but they just want to jump in every day and just go rock and roll and do it. So then at that point, that semi-absentee owner scales that to a higher level a little bit faster, where it kind of flips. But it's just, hey, you have to have that heavier payroll. You have to have this, that, the other. But the semi-absentee is sexy if the person can do it. They have the capability to do it. We try not to. We're not going to approve you if we don't think you could do it, and we are strict with that. And I think the tax advantages for somebody through some of those equipment-heavy types of options through semi-absentee is huge, because you can write some of it off on your W-2, and which is awesome, because they always knock on my door, and I got to give them all my cash.
So. Yeah. So there is a whole tax game. We can offer some unsolicited, non-certified public accounting advice.
I am not. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
But you did say finance instead of finance. So you're from the finance world when you say it like that.
I know. You gotta be. My kids are us, button down and slick back Patrick Bateman hair for you today.
We'll get you some banker's glasses, and then you're just set, man. You're good. All right. So semi-absentee, to sum it up, you've got 10 to 15 hours a week of real time, Monday through Friday, not 7 to 9 p.m. at night. Like, you have time during the day of core business hours to be able to dedicate to the business.
I think to have the flexibility to be able to do that, but it's a total of that 10 to 15.
Which is 2 to 3 hours a day, right? Like, yeah, I mean, so yeah. And then they have to hire a general manager.
Yeah.
To go through your training process that they're going to work with and kind of through a little bit. Mm-hmm. They're still going to be very involved, but they're not going to be doing as much. They're going to be delegating and relying on the general manager to execute a lot. Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of that comes down to sales too, right? Like, depending on your business model or not, but imagine you want some people oriented and some sales oriented GMs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I say too, like, let's say I make bad analogies and I tell bad jokes. This, Drew. So with all of your tens and hundreds of listeners, no, I'm kidding. I'm messing with it. But so I make bad analogies. So my analogy of being a semi-absentee owner is, let's say you're in a market where, let's say $90,000 a year is more money than most people make in the US, like a lot more. So 90K, 85, whatever. That's a good salary. Okay. And you're my GM, and I've given you the keys to my home. You can come in and you can go as you please. If you're paying me 85, 90 grand, I'll remember to lock the front door, but I'm not going to wipe my feet off. I'm not going to make sure the oven's off, the TV's off, the thermostat's set to a certain level. I'm not, because I don't care. I just do not care. I'm going to lock your door so you don't fire me, and that's it. That's how a lot of people go through it. But if I have something where there's some profit sharing or like phantom equity, where it gives that GM an opportunity that otherwise they would have not had in their lives, or at least at that point in their lives, it gives that opportunity to them and also protects the owner from them if they just decide to buzz off. So you're not giving them that equity straight up, but there's triggers and then profit sharing. You have to be willing to compensate there, and you can't nickel and dime it. People are very penny wise and dollar foolish, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because it's worth, if you have the talent, it's worth paying the talent in the GM. And there's creative ways that you can layer in some variable compensation to then where you're not, it doesn't add to your fixed monthly expense, but rewards them for hard work and keeps them motivated and incentivized to go out there and get some revenue and manage those margins.
When you pay out profit sharing or bonus as a business owner, that goes back into your pocket. The more they crush, you crush. And they're going to make your life a heck of a lot easier. If they don't remember to wipe their shoes off, in my bad analogy, that's going to be another couple extra hours that you got to go grind on and dig through and figure out. So, it's big there, but I think everybody understands that comes through the horsepower process. That you gotta be willing to incentivize them. And I think too, a franchise candidate that comes through, when they think of a GM, they think maybe of someone that is like $120,000, $130,000, and they're like, well, how would I make any money doing that? It's like there's so many beautiful ways as a small business owner that you can incentivize. That's a heck of a lot better than something that they might think of and go back to, oh, this is what it was like at PepsiCo. Well, this isn't PepsiCo.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. So can you talk through some franchise owners that you've seen have success in any of your brands with a kind of running it under the GM model from day one, with the GM not being like a vested operating partner, meaning like, they have a compensation plan around like the
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it doesn't, because it just doesn't work. And then they'll end up having that GM will leave, et cetera. Like with Heroes, when I said semi-absentee only, we have a whole flow chart of like phantom equity, what they can earn. We have like business development. And this is for not just Heroes, but all of the GMs, like business networking groups, for them to develop professionally. Zach Butler's super into all of that type of stuff. Yeah. Like we have traction, like implementers coming out, talking to them. So it's just something that it doesn't work. It won't, like, it's tough, or it's really tough to make work. And if we can't support it, I don't know who else can. There has to be a cookie, and there has to be something that's there for them.
Well, I don't think I phrased it very well. I was asking for some like actual success stories of franchise owners that have been able to run with that model, or is it maybe just Heroes? Is that the semi-absentee only brand that you're?
Heroes is really predominantly, it's just semi-absentee. Okay. Now all of our other brands have it sprinkled in for sure. There have been those success stories, and it's what we see from a standpoint of they did the right thing from a comp perspective. Their GM went through the training. Their GM bought in. A lot of times I would talk to the GM before the person even accepted the offer, or they talk to the director. We're really involved there because we want to make sure that franchise owners make the right decision too. And then we help them to craft those different comp plan structures, et cetera. And they're bought in, man. They're drinking that Kool-Aid up, and they're ready to go, and they're just an attachment of the owner. And that's where it works really well. Not like every GM is going to be a stud and just amazing, he or her, whatever, like, but if they can execute and they're bought in and they care, care does a lot to an organization. When people care about it, they care. It's not just talk and BS. Everyone talks about how hard they want to work.
Yeah. So you have validation. People can talk to franchise owners that are running some of your brands semi-absentee. That's which is a key part to anybody listening. That's, if you ever work with me, you're going to hear me in my soapbox preach, validate, because the good franchise companies want you to validate, because that's just a whole nother source of a wealth of insight and information when you talk to the franchise owners to just to hear how it's going for them. And you learn, there's always some good nuggets that you pick up from those conversations that, just hadn't come up in conversations yet or whatever. So that's key. You guys have the validation to support it. So awesome.
Absolutely. And it's something too, where you hear different opinions, I wouldn't do this semi-absentee, or I would never do it any other way. I found a great GM. Hey, I found an okay GM. My salesperson's awesome. I might have the right people in the wrong seats. Things like that. You get to hear it differently. And I will say it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to be semi-absentee, in my opinion. Just from an overall standpoint, but either way, you got to be strapped in and know that we're going to be there for you to support you, and you'll be able to, like you said, you validate a lot of different things, and you can hear a lot of different opinions. At the end of the day, though, it's that whoever that candidate is going into their head and saying, I can do this and I can do this, I could do either, whatever it might be, but I know I can execute.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you letting me do a little bit of a deep dive there, because I think it just keeps rearing its head, that semi-absentee thing, because there's so many franchise companies out there that say their business is semi-absentee, and then they have nothing. They don't have anything that you guys have put in place, and they just say it. And you can say any business is semi-absentee. Sure, just hire a manager. But like,
it's not that easy.
And to people, like, for first-time business owners, like, a lot of times they just take that in full, they just believe it. And, and some franchise companies, is it a lie? Yeah, it's a lie, in terms of how this plays out into reality. So like you guys, like what we just went through is a good example of, like, the pieces are there, the elements are there. There's definitely things to think about if you are thinking about, trying to get into a horsepower brands franchise with, semi-absentee, or any business semi-absentee. There's definitely certain elements to talk through, and the franchise company knows what those elements are and will help advise you to kind of work through the best approach. So that what we just went through is a good example, in my opinion, of the kind of doing a deep dive on semi-absentee stuff of any franchise. So thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is Heroes Lawn Care semi-absentee only?
So we set it up where it's 3 services about to be 4 in one. And it's lower ticket types of things, where it's fertilization, irrigation, pet waste removal, which that's how you get onto the property. And then you upsell, and then we're adding mosquitoes. So it's more, there's a lot of routing. There's a lot of things where we don't know what the business owner would necessarily, like, the people that they'd be executing on, because you just have that one tech in the truck, and then you have your GM, and everything else, it's so tech based. Where we run all of the billing, we do the sales, we can do all the sales digitally. Now, some of the techs we can teach to upsell, obviously, and go, hey, we did a job here. If you close, go knock and run around and do things like that. But it's really just the business owner doing BNI groups and things like that, and being out in the community and on a BD end, where we just didn't know and see a ton of value in somebody coming in that is at that high level, that can be that total people person and run those teams, understand the KPIs and stuff like that, where we already have it set up. So if they can spend that time, a little bit of time in the business, we have it dialed as far as Heroes.
So between the technology, and because they're kind of lower ticket purchases, there's not a sales element like there would be with the Mighty Dog Roofing sale. Like, you got to go out there, do the estimate, scope of the job, sell the project, even help with insurance claim. It's just people just see it, sign up for the most part, and
execution is, think about the execution on picking up dog poop. Like, I don't know.
I've always told myself I'm not going to let somebody buy a franchise that picks up dog poop. But if you have multiple revenue streams,
exactly,
and it's a way to get into the customer,
that's the secret sauce. And then we're adding.
Are you serious? People like that's the loss leader. Like that's the reason that people are calling.
Dude, yeah, that's how you get in. That's how you get on the property, and then you can upsell them. We have subcontracted services. Like I said, we're adding mosquito, but none of those things standalone were attracted to us. We need to have an AUV where we can see that clear line of sight to that $1 million+, because we want to build and scale a large business. And yeah, no, it's incredible. Actually, I just bought a puppy, Drew.
Oh, congratulations! What is that?
His name is Apollo.
Oh, Apollo.
It's not, okay. You said, what's that? I'm like, Apollo. You're like, wow, I'm going getting an exotic dog breeder or something. It's a tiger. He actually is a tiger or something bull mastiff. So he's going to be eye to eye with me.
I was going to say, he weighs more than you do. Yeah,
I'm really excited. I'm not going to tell him when walk time is. He will tell me by just looking at me in the eyes like Clifford, dude. But that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to, I'm paying for that all day.
Yeah, probably extra for his.
Exactly. It's like that scene in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
That first one with the Triceratops. That's premium. That's premium pricing. That's 4th of July pricing.
Oh man. Do you ask that on the screening calls with the call center? What kind of dog do you have?
Yeah.
Do you know if you need to charge a little more for?
We should actually. I think it's per dog. It's per dog. So
okay. Well, congratulations. How old is Apollo?
Yeah, I haven't even gotten him yet. I can't get him until mid-month. So I think he's probably 7 weeks right now.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
It's exciting.
We went the opposite way. I had a lab for 15 years, and her name was Copper, and I had Copper before I had my wife Allie. So I brought Copper to the relationship. So there's always a little bit of a resentment, There's just a little dynamic there, just because if you don't have, like, Allie didn't have the opportunity to spend the puppy time with Copper, right? Which is like an important thing. And then she shed and, all the stuff and, all that kind of stuff. So Copper had a good run. We put her down last year. And so it was Allie's turn to pick a new dog. And she picked a Cavapoo. It's like this little 12, 13 pound King Charles Cavalier and a mini poodle. And dude, I am a total lapdog guy now. Like, total lapdog guy. I love that stinking thing. It is so awesome. I don't think I can go back to a big one.
I just can't go. Dogs are just awesome.
They are awesome.
Like,
for sure.
If you don't like dogs, like I'm just not sure that I can trust you. It's something where it's like, there has to be a good reason. If there's a good reason, okay, I'm not going to totally shut you off. But you can't just, I just don't like them. What do you mean? That's insane. And that's the breeder was like, yeah, they're basically just like, they're very lazy. I'm like, that is extremely cool. They're just docile. He goes, they're kind of like big bear lap dogs though. They want to hang out with you and lay around. I'm like, man, so, maybe I miss my teddy bear or something, but I'm excited. I'll have them out at the park. So, I'm sure we'll get some, I'll send you some videos.
Yeah. I want some pictures for sure. That's awesome. All right. So Horsepower Brands has been up to some stuff as always in a good way. So can you give us kind of a state of the union update since Zach was on a couple months ago and, you guys are moving so fast. I'm sure a lot of stuff has changed. You got some new brands, some new franchises. So can you give us a state of the union in terms of, what's new at Horsepower?
Yeah. So the last couple of months, we're at 21 franchisees. What was last month? July, it's August. So in June, then about 22. Next month, we should be close to 30. We've launched a couple of brands. I know
those are net new franchise owners, right?
Yeah, not territories.
Not territories. So you're bringing on about 20, trending to 30 net new franchise owners a month, which is that is amazing. That is a dream number for a lot of franchise companies. But you guys have also, invested a significant amount of capital on the back end. So there's a whole. You can listen to the Zach podcast to kind of get a hear that. But,
and there's definitely something big to be said about that. Where like we're investing in our infrastructure too. We just added another onboarding coach. We're tweaking some things within onboarding because like we can get better. So how do we better support the owner operator, the semi-absentee, not just through business, but through startup? And we understand that we're not perfect. And here's what we need to do to pivot and get better. And we'll continue to do that because we need to. And we can't just sit here on a throne and say, oh no, it's perfect. It's like, no, there are mistakes and there are holes that we need to fill. And we know that we're willing to make those changes. It just doesn't happen like this. Unfortunately, I wish if I had that secret sauce, I probably, as much as I love Horsepower, I'd probably be selling that sauce somewhere,
Right.
But,
so how many franchise owners do you guys have across each one of your brands right now?
That's a tough question. I know Gatsby Glass has one. We have 4 owners coming to Discovery Day next month. 12 iPhone, 40, 30, 31, 32 with Blingle, Don't quote me, I like factual exact, but that's
yeah. We won't hold you to
and
it.
then Mighty Dog is like 80, something like that. And then so we launched Gatsby, which is like it's the fastest and largest growing segment within the glass industry, which is it's a specialized service, and we capitalize on B2C and B2B. From remodel to new builds into the commercial space in like a glass frameless shower doors. And we have some really cool stuff from, hey, let's be functional on the design side. It's very recession resistant too. We understand that, like when COVID hit, the market was remodeled from a new build, and we can hit each and every single one of those. I think a brand that's really been taking off is iPhone, where it's like, who's your customer? And a lot of industries are really niche with, hey, I need to get 80% soccer moms, okay, and that's it. And people think that I believe, but focus creates wealth, diversification preserves it. But it doesn't just mean because I have supporting market verticals like in Mighty Dog with the gutters, we're adding solar, et cetera, or like a direct, this is the only person I'm working with type of deal. That doesn't mean that you're not focused. What I love it is like a wider bucket. So you have remodels, retrofits of existing homes. So your B2C, you have B2B with residential, commercial, metal buildings, agricultural. So we've invested what I think is the best equipment package in the foam industry, and also built out a state-of-the-art foam and spraying for the techs, where we get them like certified with all the different certifications that they need. And we train those technicians on site in Omaha. It's super exciting. That's taken off. We have Bumblebee Blinds that's launching in a couple of months. And then we're about to launch Groovy Hues house painting. So it's Peace, Love, Paint, and Power Wash, which I came up with. No, I'm just kidding. But it'll be everything from, like interior painting, cabinets, exterior, shutters, deck fence staining, all kinds of cool stuff like that. It'll be a little bit lower investment, but, commercial, going to residential. There's already a team built out where we have a brand president, director of ops, director of marketing, and a director of sales. We've had those people on staff for over 3 months, all of them. And that's just building this model out. We haven't even launched this bad boy yet. So like we're not gonna put the baked potato.
Just keep going. Yeah. Keep going. So can I ask you a question?
Need a break.
Who does come up with the names for your brands? Because they are good. Like Blingle might be the best name I've ever heard for the appropriate business. But where do these names come from?
So it's like, this was really fun actually to go through the whole process with Mighty Dog. So when I'm talking about reading all those industry data reports, et cetera, on what does this industry want to get into? So then we find that, and then there's naming, branding, and all of these things. So we do a lot of, it's like census polls or whatever, like we're hiring outside consultants and then understanding, okay, well, what does this color say to someone? And like putting them together. We're doing it with Mighty Dog, that shade of blue, I was about to rip my hair out because we're talking to these consultants and like these other marketing, and they're like, no, this doesn't work. But when it's done and it's a finished product, you're like, wow, that was so cool to go through. And you don't understand just the little tweaks here and there and what you need to do. Does the dog have a tail or not? Blingle, should we do one light or should we do an exclamation point at the end? Groovy Hues, what else is out there? And also like competitive analysis to see what's out there as well. Who will it attract? Would it deter anyone? So it's pretty sweet. So it's like Josh, Zach, marketing, executives, and then some outside consulting too, because we just want that more from like the data perspective. It's not them necessarily making the decision, but that data perspective is so important, and we don't have any on it at that point. So we want to make sure that we launch it where it's really buttoned up. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. Yeah,
well, that was a very fancy answer because you guys have some badass names. They're really good.
I come up with all of them, Drew.
Groovy Hues. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah, I teed it up for you to take all the credit.
Dude, I know, and I screwed it up. Can you take that? Here, just pause for a second. Yeah. I come up with all of them.
Yeah. We're editing. Yes, I'll put it in the edit notes. So yes, yes. All right. Well, so what's next? So what else is on the horizon for you and for Horsepower?
I mean, those are on the docket. There's one other brand that we want to get launched by end of year. So that's including Groovy and Bumblebee blinds. That might be at early Q1. There's some other supporting verticals we're looking at. I'm just not totally certain on when those will launch and what it'll look like. We want to really button up, and we're building a lot of infrastructure behind the call center, Franchise Rocket, as well as the recruiting side of things as well. But I think the moon is where we're going. It's a rocket ship, and that's what we want to continue to do. Invest in great people. It's a really fun culture. Good people like Zach and Josh do it right. Hopefully, I get to take a nap or a vacation somewhere soon. Zach just doesn't let me leave. He keeps trying to get me to come on his farm and work on the weekends with him to like post. I'm like, do you see these dainty hands? Like these things, I've never seen a day of manual labor. Nor could I. I don't think I could even. They're not big enough to like hold a hammer or whatever you do. So Zach's trying to get me to go work on the farm, but no, we're going, building, trying to bring in the right people, do the best that we can for franchise owners, and I think be that vehicle for people and help them accomplish what they want to do with being a business owner. It's a dream, man. It is, and it's something where you have a lot of support with us, and if we're the right widget, we want to take you to what's your why at the end of the day, and mine is to help a lot of people and make it so that they don't go through what my dad went through at the end of the day. But for me personally, I'll probably, just be in this office for a while.
Well, I hope they unlock the door at 6 and let you leave to go home. And
they slide Coors Latte and pizza under. You've heard that? I think I was on with Wes or something. They actually do that. Sometimes I'll see it. They throw a piece of Papa John's at me and a couple of Coors Lights. That kid's like a rabid dog. They keep me in there. But no, I love it, man. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, and you don't get anywhere without hard work. Like I said, a lot of people want to say that they work hard and that they're passionate about what they do, but it's something that you feel. I think when people come in for a Discovery Day or just new hires, you feel the culture and the energy. There's like a buzz, and it's just exciting. It's exciting to be a part of. And from working in a broom closet next to Zach to where we are now, I knew they had a lot of cash and vision. And they were good dudes, but I was like, all right, let's see if this works out.
Well, I know what you're doing is not easy, running franchise development. I used to be in a similar role. So I know it's, there's a lot of moving parts. It's pretty fast paced. And so you do a good job, my friend. And appreciate you hopping on here and letting us talk a little bit and riff about horsepower and all that good stuff. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I love it, man. Thank you very much. You're excellent to work with and what you do as well. So I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully it's not too bad. Final cut. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, man.
See you, man. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Hope you found a nugget or two in there that can help you on your franchise journey. And if you ever want to talk franchising, reach out to me anytime.